Well, hello. I hope you all are having a fantastic day, and you will be very glad that you stopped in today to listen to this episode. We have the great pleasure of interviewing Dr. Christine Silverstein, and we're going to be talking about wrestling through adversity, empowering youth with the skill sets to thrive. And my goodness, do we need that today? So, welcome, Christine. It is so great to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And for those of you who may not know her, Christine's a peak performance coach, a behavioral health RN, an expert in clinical hypnosis. She's got over 27 years experience coaching clients across health, athletics, academics, business, the arts, you name it. She's made her mission to help people, and especially young people, to be able to reach their highest potential. And she's got a new book out called Wrestling Through Adversity, and it offers transformative insights into how young adults can develop mindful toughness, because it seems to be in short supply these days, and to be able to become more resilient and empowered even in the face of trauma. So let's dig right in, Christine. I think your book, Wrestling Through Adversity, really seems, to me at least, like a call to action. And I wondered what motivated you to write it, especially with that focus on that sort of Gen Z and young adults.
Yes, well, it started really many years ago when I first opened my private practice when my children were teenagers and they were having challenges at school, academically, in sports,
Yeah.
and they were also, the social challenges of a teenager. And I have four children. So I tried to find some help to help themselves.
Yeah.
I didn't think they had any mental health issue. It's just that I wanted somebody to show them what to do. And I looked around and I even went to a psychologist with one of my children. And this psychologist said I was the one who needed the help. I had to come for sessions.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I need to find someone else. And I couldn't. So I decided at that point I was going to study what to do to help my children.
Yeah.
And I began with my teenagers and then I branched off to other people. So by the time I started contemplating writing my book, I'd already had many years' experience working with these age groups, children, teens, and young adults. Although
Yeah.
I do work with adults, I always say from the nursery school to the nursing
Yeah.
home. But I love working with particularly teenagers.
Yeah.
And so I saw the challenges during COVID,
Yes.
and it was really intense here in the
Yeah.
States. And also the stories on TV, which I really didn't want to watch, but then
Yeah.
I knew the children were suffering, the teenagers, and they were in emergency rooms
Yeah.
for months without any care. There was
Yeah.
no mental health care for them. They had suicidal ideation. Even children as young as two
Yeah.
were in the emergency rooms for days.
Yeah.
So I saw that. And also, at the time I was writing this book, I began in 2022. We were still in the pandemic. And also, we had so many things going on. The Ukraine war was just
Yeah.
starting, and we had so much turmoil in the world.
Yes.
And as I looked at it and think, okay, parents don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They're all stressed out. And I could see that they were worrying about things like, how can I put food on my table during
Yeah.
the pandemic? It was really bad here in the States. So I thought to myself, it's time, Christine, to write a book
Yeah.
about this, and you need to say what you know, because
Yeah.
I know there's something that I can show parents what to do. I've been doing this for years because, of course, when I work with children and teenagers, I also work with parents.
Yeah.
But the one factor that's always left out, and this really disturbed me too, were the young adults. We never talk about the young adults and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And at that time, I saw on TV and I also read in the news that five college athletes committed suicide
Yeah.
in early 2022. And that very much disturbed me
Yeah.
because I know, especially being athletes, they should have the skill sets to live life. And they were all very successful. They
Yeah.
were all very intelligent. They were going to college. They had their majors. They were popular. And here they committed
Yeah.
suicide. And I couldn't get over that one. And
Yeah.
that really put me over the top to say, I have to write a book and I have to include young adults, which people question, well, why are you including them? Even the person I was working with to publish my book is saying, well, why talk about young adults? But it's very important to me to include them since I work with a lot of athletes and performing artists. So I got to that point, but there was another factor that was interesting that it told me it was time to write a book. And that was many years previous to that. When I first started my work, I had this situation with my dad. He was not well. He was really at the end of his life, and he had some health issues. So I wrote him a note, since I'm a nurse and very versed on what you can do. Here, Dad, this is what you can do to help yourself, to get better. And it was a 7-page letter, and he read it, and it affected him so much. He couldn't move his hands. So my mom held the phone for him while he talked, and he was crying on the phone.
Uh,
And I said, Dad, what's wrong? And he said, your letter was so beautiful. And I didn't know you was such a good writer.
yeah,
That was what came out. And
lovely.
I found out then that my dad wanted to be a journalist when he was younger. I didn't even know that when he went off to war.
Yeah,
He came back, had 5 children. He never got to accomplish his goal. So he
yeah.
wanted me, promised him I would be an author. I would be a
Oh,
writer. So that was on his deathbed,
yeah,
pretty much. And then I didn't write. I wrote, but articles and professional journals, things like that. But I never wrote a book. And my dad was my inspiration. So this is what happened. And then he made me promise. But there's one more thing that happened right before I started, and that was I almost drowned at the Outer Banks in
yeah.
North Carolina. And when I came out of the water, there was this professor who had a book he
Wow.
was reading on a stormy day. He was alone on the beach,
Yeah,
and I knew that was the time. Like my dad telling me,
yeah,
Christine, write that book.
yeah,
And my dad was an athletic director, so I learned everything I know about sports from him.
yeah.
So that was my motivation for starting then.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for mama bears. Like, yeah, I mean, this all started with you advocating for your own kids, and I think like most women, we tend to then take it and share the wealth, share that generosity.
That's right.
And you use the phrase mindful toughness a lot, and I'm wondering what does that mean in your practice, and how does it tie into this idea about being able to negotiate our best lives?
Well, the idea of it came about because when I first started, I was a columnist for a wrestling publication. I do work with a lot of wrestlers, although I work with many sports. And in that, I was writing about mental toughness, way back when I first started. And some of my clients would say, "Well, what are you saying to me? Are you telling me I have a mental problem?" You
Yeah.
know, and so it's often used in sports, but
Yeah.
so I decided many years later, now I have a trademark for that, but I decided since I'm very oriented towards mindfulness, I've been practicing meditation for over 30 years, and also self-hypnosis helped me when I was younger, when the doctor told me I was infertile, I had 4 miscarriages, and I
Wow.
would never have a baby. And after I started meditating and getting in the zone, I call it now the fertility zone. I had 4 children.
Yeah.
So it was very powerful. So I
Yeah.
changed it to mindful toughness
Yeah.
so that we can be mindful of what's going on around us. And that includes body, mind, and spirit and
Yeah.
emotions, which are the 4 levels of healing.
Yeah.
So that's how I started off with that. But I also learned lots of things for myself, like from my youth and what I knew to win a skating race when I was 10 years old. And those are the same principles I'm using now. So
Yeah.
you have to relax. One of the things that you have relaxation, and the relaxation comes in form of breathing, exercise, and I call it breathing easy. And then you do the mental rehearsal, which is very powerful, and using your imagination and the power of your mind,
Yeah.
which makes my programs different than others. I teach self-hypnosis.
Yeah.
So that's the second one, mental rehearsal, seeing yourself, feeling yourself, hearing yourself there, right in the moment. You already graduated from college, you already
Yeah.
won the championship. And then other things like positive self-talk and mental recall, which is very powerful, taking an experience from the past and bringing it to the present moment through a power word. And I've used that many times on the wrestling mat.
Yeah.
And then also I use a feedback loop analysis that also includes not just what you're doing, say you're practicing a wrestling move or you're at bat in your mind's eye,
Yeah.
but in the center of that, I ask these questions. So what was I feeling when I was performing? What was I thinking? And that really influences what you're doing. Oh, it was the end of the baseball game and I had to hit a home run and I didn't, or I felt very confident when I was when
Yeah.
I was at bat, and so that's an addition, and I developed that over the course of time, and that's really helpful for my clients to grow.
Yeah. And I mean, so often I think it's one of the reasons I started the Art of Feminine Negotiation podcast is because I think when people think about negotiation, they immediately think of external and only external between people. But I
Mhm.
love that your work explores that negotiation with the self. And how important do you think is that inner negotiation for building resilience? I take it from your programming, what you've described it, that you probably agree, but
Yes, it's so essential. It's
yeah.
so essential. So, speaking about negotiation, we as women have to learn that at very early age. And
Yes.
I got pretty adept at it,
Yeah.
thinking back, when I was very young. But I also, first day I started my business in Oakland, New Jersey, I had so many challenges. For instance, I wanted to rent an office in my hometown, and there was such prejudice there. I went to the board meeting in the horseshoe-shaped board meeting with all the men sitting there,
Yeah.
and me at the end, and they're telling me things like, so, we threw out all the psychics out of town, are you a tea leaf reader and things like that? And
Uh,
I'm looking at myself as like, what's indicating that? I had a master's degree at that
yeah.
time, and
Incredible.
so I was just fortunate that there was one physician sitting on my right side saying, didn't you ever hear of Olympics and how they have coaches, to win?
Yes.
So that helped me greatly. So from the very first day, because I had put all my money into this office, I bought a recliner off the back of a 18-wheeler truck on the way home from gymnastics to put in my office, right? And I had to use my 401k and my money to even put a down payment on this office. So it was very important for me. And then I had all this opposition from the people, the Better Business Bureau said I was a quack and all this stuff.
Jeez.
So, so from the very first day, I said, I'm going to someday have my own office. I'm going to purchase it, right? So 13 years later, I did do that. I became a real estate agent so
Yeah.
I could go and purchase my office, and I got a commission, so I paid for all the lawyer fees,
Yeah.
etc. from that. And I'm very proud. I still have that office, and I'm
Yeah.
very proud to do that. And I told my husband, see, I accomplished my goal because at that
Yeah.
time he said, "Oh, yeah, right, you're going to do
You-
this, and get your own office." But
Yeah.
an adept negotiator using the power of my mind and also mentally rehearsing and
Yeah.
beforehand to get the results that I want.
Of course. And I want to circle back to the mental health piece because I know you argue that our current mental health system is outdated, and I agree. It needs so much work. What kind of paradigm shift do you think would help, would be urgently needed, and how does your work help support that?
Well, I believe that we all have to participate as a community. And as adults, we need to know about ourselves. That's the first thing,
Yeah.
because parents they don't know what to do. But
Yeah.
in this country, I just read the other day, 1 in 5 adults have some kind of mental disorder.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about being the guide to your children, well, you have to look at yourself
Yeah.
and realize, okay, maybe I've had some trauma in the past
Yeah.
and work through those traumas, release them so that they're not affecting your children.
Yeah.
And that's where you start. So you learn these techniques. And many of the people reading my book and the reviewers say, oh, I'm using these techniques now. I'm helping my children. So
Yeah.
you have to help your children help themselves.
Yeah.
Particularly now, we have in this country Medicaid cuts just came out the other day. We don't have that national health care.
Yeah.
And we also have a lot of people losing insurance because the job market
Yeah.
is not good here
Yeah.
because of the tariffs and things going on. So a lot of people lost their jobs
Yeah.
and they have no health insurance. So I say you need to learn it yourself. And that's the paradigm shift that we
Yeah.
all have to participate and
Yeah.
work with our children and believe in them. And I also, as I work with the children, I work with the adults to help them to realize, your child has so much potential,
Yeah.
especially teenagers, because of the
Yeah.
developing brain. And they have amazing brains and they're really smart, but we don't give them any credit and forget young adults.
Yeah.
They're just lost, out there in no man's land. They don't even think that they can be
Yeah.
successful.
And
And
talking about it, I think, is so important, and that's why I love that you start the
talking
conver
about
there's
it,
so much stigma. We pay a lot of lip service to how far we've come on mental health issues, but I find that's not actually the case. There's still
it's
people are
not the
very
case.
guarded about it. They're afraid to and again, as parents modeling it, teaching our kids, it's healthy to talk about it. And I want to, since
Yes.
we're focusing on young people as well, I love your concept about, making lemonade out of lemons. And I'm wondering, could
Yes.
we teach young people to reframe adversity and see it as opportunity?
Yes, well, that's my work is all about because I do believe that the greatest storms make the best sailors. And so, how do you learn how to wrestle with adversity if you've never had any or you're protected from it at
Yeah.
home? And that is a big deal because you can have the greatest home life, you go to first
Yeah.
grade and you get bullied in the schoolyard. And then what do?
Yeah.
You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I think parents have a tendency to safeguard their children and to do everything for them. And then they don't know, they grow up and they don't know what to do, or they even go up to college and they don't know how to help themselves. Not only don't they know how to do their laundry when they get to
Yeah.
college, they don't know how to navigate it, and it's all
Yeah.
new. And it's the same thing going into high school. I work with a lot of eighth graders going into high school, and they might be even on the wrestling team, and they're scared to death, thinking what would happen. Now they have to wrestle somebody who might be 18 or 19 years old, and they're 13 or 14,
Yeah.
and they're really scared about it. So you have to grow into, I always say, grow into your wrestling shoes,
Yeah.
and we all have to grow into our shoes, our high heels or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's really a very big challenge. So I say you start early when your children are young,
Yeah.
and then you build up, and then you learn yourself as well. Put yourself in your children's shoes, because we don't often do that. We just think of ourselves.
Yeah.
Even during gun violence here in this country, we had an incident in Maine a couple of years ago, and I was on the TV telling parents what to do because the shooter was still at large.
Wow.
And you have to put yourself in your children's shoes, and you have to
Yeah.
get through your own issues first before you start talking to them, because you're there to support them. And the healthcare professionals weren't allowed to, they were all in their homes and they couldn't come out because the shooter was still at large. So it's very important to start to know your children, to know yourself, and start very young.
Yeah.
And you can do this through sports, which is my favorite way to help children. But even now, just this morning, I heard on the news, like here in the States, the governor of New York is saying, oh, 16 and 17-year-olds, they should be tried as adults because of the heinous crimes they're committing. We have more of them. And I don't see how that's going to help
I know.
these kids who have
Yeah.
all these adverse childhood experiences, as they're called, to not be criminals or
Yeah.
commit homicide.
Yeah.
So me, that's not a solution. We need to work with kids, and there are programs like in Wales for to build community of sports to help
Yeah.
children, and also in New Jersey there's a program
Yeah.
to work with children who have these issues so that they can be thrive in life,
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of that, and also to work as community and people who care about children, coaches. And so I give lectures, to wrestling coaches and what to do. And I started that right away. I started that years ago when I first started my work, and I ended up on the wrestling mat with an Olympic champion.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm the only woman there.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, what are you doing here? You're a nurse. We're not injured. I
Yeah.
had all kinds of issues until the Olympic champion finally told these high school coaches, you better listen to this lady because I won the Olympic gold medal doing these things. And then they finally listened to me.
Yeah.
But that so I had to navigate there for sure and negotiate for sure.
Yeah. Now, what do you wish that more parents and educators and leaders understood about how young people negotiate stress and fear and even identity today?
Yes, well, I think as grown-ups, I'll say, although some adults don't act like
Yeah.
that,
True.
sometimes, that we need to understand, we need to help these
Yeah.
kids. Like during the riots last year, the protest in Columbia University, and also the places in New York City where I I visit quite often, they were protesting the Palestinian, the children, the
Yep.
hostages, etc. And that was an opportunity to teach them conflict resolution,
Yes.
which we can know, professors can know that in college, but also to teach them what to do. They have the empathy, which
Yes.
is different than older generations,
Yeah.
and they really want to help,
Yeah.
but they just don't know how. They haven't learned yet. And I'm a big favor of that. And that's why I like to work with young adults, how to navigate after college or how to navigate after high school.
Yeah.
And you want to get that job. And so you can mentally rehearse the job opportunity. I worked with a young woman who was in college. She was 21 and she had a knee injury. She was a soccer player and then she played lacrosse and she had a serious knee injury. So she had to stop playing the sport, but she had surgery. The first surgery didn't work on the cartilage in her knee. So then she had stem cell surgery and
Yeah.
they replaced it, which is really miraculous surgery. I saw it online. So I got a call from her mother. She was in physical therapy office and she was screaming in pain during the physical therapy. So her mother said, "Can you help my daughter? She's in there and she's screaming." So I saw the daughter and she came to my office and she was totally crying. She could hardly walk. And she was in such pain because she had to bend her knee a certain level,
Yeah.
to improve. And the doctor was talking about doing the surgery over again because it wasn't working. And so I helped her in so many ways. First of all, to help her to bend her knee using a little carved tiger that has joints. And I helped her with that with the imagery and also other techniques that I used for discomfort. And she got to a point where she was able to bend her knee better and mentally rehearse and prepare for the physical therapy. But also, since she was in an internship in a psychology office, I helped her with that to ask questions so she could get, after she graduated, she could get a job. And
Yeah.
she wanted to go to graduate school for social work. So I helped her with that. And she was a coach on a soccer team in high school. So I helped her with all those levels just by using the power of her mind and what she could do to teach the teenagers she was working
Yeah.
with. So this can be spread out to everybody. And it's very important that we start when they're young. Now, this person has the empathy and to work with kids. She's going to do that for her social work. And it's better for everybody.
Yeah.
And also her mother was happy that she got over that challenge because it was very painful for her. And her knee healed
Yeah.
perfectly.
Nice. Now, I mean, when you touch on that, it makes me think we've got a world that's so filled with distraction. You were talking about the protests and that, and there's constant change. What do you think are the most essential mindset shifts that young people can make to become more empowered negotiators of their own futures?
Well, I think they're starting to, like the Gen Zs are saying they want work-life balance.
Yeah.
They want meditation rooms and yoga rooms in their workplace,
Yeah.
right? And so they're starting to talk about it. And I think that's a better future than the rat race that we're all in, and especially like in New York City, we just had a shooting, and those people, some of those people were young. One was just 27 years old, just worked at the firm for, less than a year, who got shot to death. So we need to have calm, we need to have focus on who we are and body, mind, and spirit. And it can't be just treatment for mental illness. And that's the only treatment I
Yes.
call it, first of all, primary prevention is what I do, promoting mental health. Secondary is detection. So you detect that a teenager has suicidal ideation. And the third is the Narcan or the Noxalone boxes in the schools
Yeah.
to prevent overdose.
Yeah.
Primary prevention is what we have to focus on.
Yeah. And proactive. I find our system is you
Proactive.
have to wait until somebody's in crisis before you can actually
Okay.
access so many of the resources out there. So, where can our listeners either get a copy of your book or learn more about you and your work?
Well, my book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, any place where books are sold.
Yeah.
It's in paperback, also ebook, and I have an audiobook as well for those who like to listen. And I have great stories in there so to read.
Fabulous.
Also, LinkedIn, I do a weekly newsletter and I do a blog each week.
Okay.
I have the Young Navigator is my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I think that my book is coming out in Arabic soon. So people who
Nice.
speak Arabic can
That's
read it as
lovely.
well. And also the idea is just to be open to learning what's new. My center is in Oakland, New Jersey, the Summit Center for Ideal Performance, and I work also online. So I can be reached through my websites, idealperformance.net and also drchristinesilverstein.com.
Fabulous.
It's my book website.
And we'll make sure to put that for our listeners. If that was too much for you to get down, don't worry. We'll make sure to put it on the show notes so you can access it. And Christine, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And for all of you listeners, thank you for joining us today on the Art of Feminine Negotiation. And if this episode has sparked new insights, make sure to subscribe, make sure to rate the podcast, and make sure to share. Give the gift of sharing so other people can enjoy the benefits of the insights that got dropped here today. And remember, negotiation isn't about power over, it's about power within. So let's teach the next generation to negotiate with grace, grit, and purpose. And that's a wrap for this episode. So now go renegotiate the life that they told you need to settle for. And remember that every moment is a negotiation. Choose presence, choose power, choose purpose. I like to think this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. You can be part of something bigger. So together we can redefine power, one conversation, one negotiation at a time. And join the movement and lead the change. And please, I encourage you to do it with heart, negotiating like the powerful force of nature that you are. And remember that feminine doesn't mean weak, it means unstoppable. So until next time, take care.